Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Lead Podcast, where our intention is to support development of future hospitality industry leaders. And I just got to say this up front. Today's episode is focused on getting the keys to the playground. And what an exciting conversation, whether you're in a senior position or an emerging leader. We're going to break down exactly what that means. Before we introduce our amazing guest, so honored to have today, Jennifer, I'd like to say hi, Amy. How are you today?
Very great. Glad to be here. I am so excited for this episode. Jennifer Dodd is a legend in the industry. She's a mentor for many, many females in the industry. She brings others along and she does a lot of panel work. She represents women in restaurant leadership. She had an extraordinary session last year that was very meaningful for a lot of people that kind of changed careers and lives and trajectories. And so not only is she here to help support us at Lead, but she also is a dear friend and I very much admire her. So Jennifer, thanks for being on Lead today and helping support emerging leaders.
Thank you, and much love to you and all of our world leaders. And thank you, Matt, for all that you do to support Lead and all of our great, sessions that we have with you. And there's so much learning happening here.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about your background. And you're one of the fewer female CEOs in the restaurant space. But I'd love to hear a little bit of your background, how you got to where you are, and then we'll dig into the topic at hand.
Well, I needed a job, and I was 15. I paid for everything I bought or owned since I was 11 years old. No one's bought me anything since I was 11. And there was only so much babysitting I could do, to make things work when I needed the Nikes and the more expensive things. So went out to find a job, and no one would hire me except Wendy's, a small Wendy's franchisee that had 3 stores. But my job was playing the Wendy girl. So I literally wore what was a dyed red mop wig on my head, and I painted the like little freckles and wore the blue and white dress and waved the kids down on the street with the balloons. And that was my first job. And I actually was in college because I was in dual enrollment and to be a microbiologist. And I mentioned that because hospitality meant so much to me that ultimately I abandoned my microbiology career and went head on into restaurant operations and grew from a 335 an hour Wendy girl to, the C-suite by the time I was 28 years old, and there's not very many industries that you can do that in, and I was very blessed that I picked the right one, and I've loved it, never looked back ever since.
We're so lucky that you've chosen that because we've all been able to cross paths with you and learn from you.
Oh, thank you. It's been my
Absolutely.
pleasure. I'm the one who's blessed.
Well, I think it might be a question. I didn't think to go down this path, but just as you shared there, when I talk to leaders, sometimes we forget, where we started, where it all began, and that that Wendy's story and the scrappiness to it and the commitment to it. But what's one of the lessons that you've taken from, or a leader might be able to take from where you are to where you've got to now? What's one of the major lessons you've got kind of as that path has continued?
I'm still the Wendy girl. I never lost the lessons. Even today, when I lead an organization, whether it's international or domestic, whatever I've done, the lessons really matter. It's super important to me. Are we get to be the best part of people's day,
Yeah.
and I think it's so important for hourly employees and managers and shift leaders to remember you're not just doing a job, you're literally changing lives because I could see people come up on that parking lot. I might be able to hear them getting out in a fight or being angry or just by themselves and looking sad. And when they saw me standing there holding that door with this big goofy smile, they ultimately smiled back. And then their gait got a little faster, their day lifted, and I loved that. I brought that inside when I got promoted to cashier, and I started noticing how specific people were about their order. This was long before the days of have it your way, but people would want their burger cut in half, the fries with no salt, whatever. And so I would pay attention that if we got it right, they go through metamorphosis. And you might have heard me say this before because it's super important to me. Food feeds the body, but it also feeds the soul. Because when a person bites into that burger or whatever you're serving them, a fresh squeezed juice at Main Squeeze, has that sip, if it met what they wanted, they take a deep breath, their shoulders drop, and their forehead softens. I grew up without food a lot. We were homeless and hungry a lot in my childhood, had the tough, tough childhood. So for me, that was magical to watch the power of food and beverage in people's lives. And I care very deeply about making sure that the recipe is right, the hot food is hot, the cold food is cold, and I never resented that. It was something I thought was power in my hand between making people feel happy and then ensuring that we get the food right and be exceptional. That's still who I am today. And then, of course, my husband ultimately asked me out in the drive-through lane in that Wendy's 43 years ago, and, the rest is history, and that's the best thing that ever happened to me in the restaurant space for sure. He's still my boyfriend today.
Love it. Still the boyfriend side, I love it. And one thing is for the leaders watching this, that you can just hear the passion and the authenticity of what you just shared. And as you were telling that story, I think sometimes we forget where we started as we advance in our careers, but how much you care for people. You could see the emotional reaction as you shared that story with us. And it's
Mhm.
just the three of us in this dynamic right now. But as this goes live to a larger audience, it's such a lesson for emerging leaders to look at that passion and where it comes from, and we connect with each other as people. I just wanted to pause there. You just gave me a huge moment of reflection myself, and it created emotion in me. But thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, thank you. It is true, and then, I learned about the power of impacting employees when I got promoted to a trainer or a shift leader, and, we are so blessed to work with people from all walks of life. Maybe they are in their master's program, or maybe they were like me and had a tough childhood and never had anybody serve as a leader or a true example and help them stand up taller. So having standards was really important, high quality standards. My manager at that Wendy's, my assistant manager, he wanted to go home fast, but you couldn't pre-close, you couldn't shut anything down early. So he was a smart guy that he started a competition. There were 3 closers, and at night, and I'm not trying to set a bad example because there's a lesson at the end, but this goes to profitability. At night, there was Frosty mix left over in the Frosty machine. We had to clean it every night, right? So he came up with a brilliant idea that whoever could close the fastest and pass his white glove inspection, and I mean white glove, you got to take home the leftover Frosty mix and a leftover mayonnaise or a mustard jar. Well, I'm nothing if not competitive. Not to mention, as I said, we didn't have a lot of money in our house. So let me just say, you couldn't open my freezer without Frosty mix falling out on you at home. And my family was very happy because I was winning a lot.
Yeah.
But if you didn't get it right and you missed your white glove inspection, then you were just out. And the other 2 guys got a chance to compete. And I was the only girl then, too, Amy. I was like the only girl closer with 2 guys all the time. But ultimately, we got in trouble. He did, because food costs went up. No one was thinking about, because what would happen if the Frosty mix was running low, we would go get another carton and pour the Frosty mix in. So there was a prize to take home at night.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
We didn't know we were stealing. We had no idea that we were like, taking the company's
It
profits.
had positive intent, just turned out a little opposite. That's awesome.
So finally, cost of goods went up, and we had to have a conversation about no more prizes, but there was still the white glove inspection where we got to go home early. But it also helped.
It built a good behavior.
Yeah, and profitability. I started learning, wait a minute, this affects cost of goods. What is cost of goods? So even as a 17-year-old at the time, or 16 at the time, I started learning about the impact on the business that we were running by the decisions that we made.
So
So what
Jennifer, oh, go
sure.
ahead, Mom.
No, go ahead. I mean,
No, you go.
and just we shared on profitability, and it's one thing I get a chance to interact with a lot of leaders, and I think profitability for some is the definition of success because that's the only success measurement they're given, but also understanding what profitability is and the true definition. I've sat with groups of owners that have a different definition of profitability for their own restaurant or restaurant group. But how important is profitability and why? It sounds like there's some background story there you can share with us.
In the beginning, it was a must do, should do. In the beginning of my career, like I had to do this, the boss expected it, and there were, rigors and expectations around that.
Mm.
But then I started realizing that there were benefits for us as hourly employees. Now, of course, you have to work for an owner that really cares, and that's important. I do think that we have a lot of owners who care and a lot of managers who care. So fast forward when I got promoted to a general manager for the first time in Narby's, I you did literally got a big poster board like your white, poster board you had in school that you would draw things and put up your glitter stuff on or whatever. Well, maybe you didn't do glitter, Matt, but we did a lot of glitter and rainbows. And at the end of the day, I put that up and I had my team. I was relentless on measuring waste. You had a waste basket for the French fries. You had waste for the roast beef. You had a bucket for any soda that you overpoured, and I had them do that, and we broke it down. So we wasted, how many gallons of soda this week? We weighed the French fries every night, and then I divided that by the number of employees. And every time that we would do it, and we'd say this could have turned into a 5-cent raise for everybody. This could have meant that we had a pizza party every week or whatever, and it just helped them, even though they were not there to be the general manager. They were on a path, many of them. Some of them are still in Arby's careers today, are owners, which I'm very proud of. But you never know, right, where people are going to end up. But even if they're just there for a part-time job, helping them understand that if I waste excessively and I'm not careful with my portion or with the recipe or listening to the customer, it could affect all of us. And I just found and all of a sudden, I'm a brand new general manager. I'm 3 months in. I'm the youngest. I'm the only woman, by the way, and the general manager of my region. And I'm at a meeting and I win Best Cost of Goods Award, and for the store. And I'm like, theoretical versus actual. And I didn't even know what theoretical food cost was then. I looked at my table full of guys and I said, what's theoretical food cost when they were calling me to the stage and they just wanted to like stab me. They were so like, you make me so mad. But at the end of the day, we constantly won best theoretical versus actual because we stayed focused on it and helped people understand the why. And I think there's a great quote I heard later that says, when people understand the why, they do the what a whole lot better. So coming back to your question, the playground is why are you working? So I was working to become, a great mother and wife and raise two beautiful babies to be successful adults and be able to pay for them to go to college or have a beautiful wedding or whatever, prom dress, all the things that I had dreams for my kids. And thankfully, we were blessed to be able to achieve all those things. And they're great kids. But at the end of the day, I had a young man that was working because he loved a red sports car. He wanted a Mustang. So I kept that Mustang in front of him. It's like that's his playground. He was working not just to make sure that I got the award for the store. He was working because he wanted to buy that red Mustang. So every time I saw a red Mustang, if I saw one in a magazine or saw it on a TV show, I would talk to him about that red Mustang because that was his playground and he could get a raise by helping the store do better and be, achieving our goals. And it made it his why. He understood the what. So I think of profits as I love the playground. It's where I want to go every day. For me, my playground now is turned into mentoring people, growing companies, helping our shareholders be very happy. That's a different space that I'm at now. But to get the keys to that playground, I got to have profitability. So I don't get the key anymore if I'm not helping the company make money. No different than the young man with the Mustang. Maybe he could go get another job, but he wouldn't have a cool leader like me. So he did. He stayed around and he helped. And that guy ended up being a manager, and ended up being like $100,000 Walmart manager one day because of all the things that he learned starting at that Arby's. So that became his playground.
Jennifer, how did you take the team and lead them into understanding the what? Was it one-to-one conversations? Is it pre-shifts? Like, what are the actual actions that you had to do besides the glitter poster? Because I think that that is important because it gives clarity in what the numbers are, right? I mean, everyone's got those communication boards up, but is it how do you actually invest so that they understand so they can teach it back and then understand how they get the goals for them to have their red Mustang and in that playground?
It really is about caring about people. I spent time with them. So I think that's important. Trust is so easily fractured. And let's be honest, none of us come through our childhood, no matter how good it was, unscathed, or our teenager years unscathed. And so you're working with people who have seen and experienced the tough parts of humanity and seeing trust be broken. And I'm coming back to your answer because leadership is so important. Even if you're just leading each other as a peer or you're on a sports team or you are growing in this wonderful business that you should invest your career in, young people, I'm telling you, it's an incredible business. I could go on for days telling you why and what you could get from that. But whatever you're doing, trust is crucial and it cannot be broken. So if I'm spending time with you and I'm understanding what's important to you, doing reviews, telling you that you're going to be rewarded for better behavior, and then you get to see that happen. Not always in a raise. I did daily reviews as a general manager. I had 3 by 5 cards that we agreed in the morning when you came in what your shift was going to be, what your goals were. So setting goals is very important. So maybe your speed of service at the drive-through had been 42 seconds at the window and you were trying to get to 30. And so and I was measuring you. You never knew why when. And now I'd come in and high five you and we'd have a big party. And maybe I had candy bars, the 100 grand bars, or Kit Kats because you deserve a break today because you got to your 30 seconds. Something that made you feel known, understood, and you trusted that if you placed a little part of your heart in my hands, that I was going to be integrous with that. And I was going to respond in a way that you needed and that I was paying attention to you. I think that's important. And then people get involved and jump in that boat and start rowing with you, no matter what level you're at. It's the same methodology still applies, including with your board of directors. Same thing.
And I think for all leaders out there watching, we have two people that I think do this best, and Jennifer and Amy, but they see the person, so not the position. And as I've watched leaders try to grow, if we don't take the time to understand the why, the motivation, what's happening with them outside of work, just something just that you made me pause there again to say, what might have happened in this person's path before they got to work with me, not for me, but with me. Because we
Exactly.
all have life experiences. We could have a whole nother episode on that.
Yeah.
And I had somebody look me in the eyes for the first time in hospitality and say, I believe it. Like I was 18 and nobody had told me that at 18. They told me what they didn't believe in. But that interaction changed my life. But we all have the option if we want to create momentum and growth to really support those around us.
Yeah.
So looking at the next stage, because we're talking about profitability, but we're also talking about sustainability. A lot of stuff that we see online is how do we scale? How do we grow? What's next? But what I was taught at a young age is if I wanted to grow in my career, I needed to make sure to replace myself and be able to really think about the team that was around me and
Yeah.
behind me. But I think there's this concept of sustainability that can get missed because there's so much focus on growth. Talk to me a little bit about how you see profitability, but how it connects to sustainability, scalability. How should a leader look at that today?
Well, I that's what grew my career, Matt. Really, I was very blessed. 4 days into my Arby's career, I got invited to be in part of an advanced leadership development program. That was a 4.5 year program that gave me, I mean, literally more than you could get in the executive MBA, access to, Olympic gold medalist or famous NFL stars or the CEO of Coca Cola. I mean, whatever we spent. We had project based work in CFO roles, chief real estate, whatever. We did it all because we had to prove ourselves in every aspect of the organization so that we'd be better CEOs and presidents. Again, back to another reason why the listeners need to understand in the restaurant industry, you're not just cooking burgers and fries or squeezing fresh juice. You're impacting people. You have a career option that if you become excellent at what you do, you can plug yourself in and continue to scale. So I've run Tim Hortons franchise recruitment for the United States. I've done non-traditional development. I've done so many things. That's for the listeners. PSA, choose hospitality as a career. But back to your question, at the end of the day, I think sustainability comes from great processes and systems that are relentless. Like the process has to stand on its own. And let me explain that. We've all been to a doctor's office that you see that ugly skeleton body hanging there, right? You see the whole skeleton hanging on the hook in a doctor's office. And I think that last I looked, the average skeleton weighs about 66 pounds. That's in us right now. You, Amy, and myself have a skeleton inside us right now. It doesn't do anything by itself except for allow the structure for the connected systems to work. But if I had to get up from this table after I finish my talk with you and I had to say, "Oh, I have to run to my next meeting." But wait a minute, is my leg going to work? Last time my leg didn't work. And I don't mean to dismiss for people who have troubles like that every day. And I am very empathetic to that. And I admire them for fighting through it. But if I had to second guess, does my leg work today or tomorrow or next week? Then how stressful would that be? What all would that take in my mind to be able to decide what I do next? So that's what we do when we don't build sustainable systems. The system has to stand by itself so that when the people, which are the circulatory system, the heart, the brain, which is the leader, when the body gets together, we know immediately what to do. And so one of my favorite leadership lessons I love to teach is habitual consistency. And there's a great example of that with Coach Tony Dungy, who took the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the Super Bowl. And he consistently repeated, like, relentless on the basics. And his reason was if you free the brain up, because those things become automatic. You do this every time you line up, you don't think about it, there's never a question. And we practice that at nauseum. Well, then when the ball goes another way, the brain is freed up to take care of that ball. So in the restaurant business, that means If we have our systems and we are true to that and we hold each other accountable, my peer doesn't do it. If the night before manager didn't do it, we hold them accountable. That's a good word.
Yep.
And so if we do that so much, then if the customer comes in upset or a bus pulls on the parking lot or one of our fryers breaks down, well, then the brain is freed up to deal with that because you've got the system so strong, back to that skeleton, that is structurally there. And then that's why your sustainable growth happens. Second part of sustainable growth, though, is empowering people. So my career grew because I always delivered on training my people. I wanted my people to be better than me. I didn't ever learn anything that I didn't give away. It's like I had development plans for every hourly employee, and I know that that makes me somewhat unique. But frankly, it's a great leadership thing to do because I had no idea that's what was getting me promoted. I went from an assistant manager making $18,000 a year to a C-suite making $125,000 a year at the time, and that was in the '90s. So that was, and when I finally started seeing it in my director promotion, they said, "Jennifer, we are growing, and you're always providing people, giving people away, giving leaders away, and they're great when they get there." So I was like, "Oh, that's the magic." And then that's why we were making sales and profits because the people understood how to run their own role and they owned it 100%. That's sustainability.
Love it.
Long
Me
answer.
too. That's a great answer. And I think more and more emerging leaders, when they want to get to the next level, that is how you do it. You're literally building a replacement for yourself
Always.
because you are training people to be better than you. So very, very well said there. Talk to us about how you teach others on profitability. So if I'm listening, how would I take that back to my team? It is something that a lot of people don't discuss, right? We talk about leadership and the EQ side of things, but the IQ is where the business sense comes in, and the P&L comes in, and the EBITDA, and making sure that we're making profits for the business that they're hiring us for to run. So, one or two, three key points that you think, if you were listening to this, you could take away to go learn or action on to become even better than anybody already is today listening to this to do.
Part of it I learned on my own because I'll tell you a couple of things, stories. I was very young. Then between Wendy's and Arby's, I was at Hardee's, and I had a very hard general manager. I mean, she was like boot camp 24/7. Her name was Sheila at Hardee's. And I mean, she yelled at us. Like it was not, but she was great. She was incredible. Hardee's respected her. She was like the best GM in the system, but she just didn't have great EQ, to your point. It's people skills. But, yeah, I remember one time I did not listen well enough, and I stocked the orange juice wrong in the lower cooler on the front line. And we did, $3,000 and $5,000 a day for breakfast during those days. I mean, massive sales. So that was a big deal. We had to be able to get as many orange juices as we could in there. And she came up, people lined out the door, and she threw that orange juice on the floor, which now is
Which you can't do now.
yeah, you can't do that either. And she screamed, I'm on the cash register waiting on a customer, and she says, "Dodd, why did you do this orange juice wrong again? I've told you 3 times." And I was just like so embarrassed and so shocked. And of course, I go over and restock the orange juice. I came home that day. I was already married. I got married at 18. A love of my life at Wendy's. But I came home and told my husband in tears I was going to quit. And he said, "Don't you quit that job. You learn how to do that job so well that she doesn't yell at you anymore." And he's a real nice guy. He's a music guy. But I was like, you know what? That is right. I am not going to quit that job. So I went back and it became my mission to do the job so well, not out of resentment or to hate her, but to just prove that she couldn't find anything to yell at me about. She learned to respect me from that. She learned to learn from me from that. She asked me to be a part of her leadership team, and I was able to go help open a lot of new stores for her because she trusted me. But I was also able to coach her. Like, Sheila, you can't fire somebody on Christmas Eve. I'm sorry. You just can't do it. She was that intense. But at the end of the day, the funny part is she called me like 5 years, 6 years after we weren't working together anymore. Somehow found my number back then and apologized to me because she was always pretty hard on me when I had kids, when I had to leave when they were sick, and she'd never had children. So she called me later and said, "I owe you an apology." And this was 5, 6 years after we didn't work together anymore. I never knew the burden of having children who got sick and you had to handle it with work. I mean, so I impacted her life in a way that hopefully still translates today. And I think that hopefully that answers your question. Like when you think that that's the biggest answer for me, it's like you're always touching somebody's life, and you might not know until 20 years later. I've gotten a LinkedIn message that said, I was having a mental breakdown. One gentleman told me I was having a hard time, and I work for you at Shoney's. And he said, you gave me a leave act long before there was family medical leave act. You gave me space, protected my job, allowed me to get better. And I just want you to know this is 20 years later that what a difference it made in my life. And now I'm going to cry thinking about it. So at the end of the day, we are doing that every day. And
Mhm.
never is it a boring job, because we never know who we're touching along the way.
Love it. One thing I just want to highlight for the audience, because it's something that I see in remarkable leaders, and Jennifer's brought it forward here, is the ability to tell rich and vivid stories. So I think what people buy into as a young leader, for me, it was about stocking the orange juices. What we've heard in this episode, it wasn't about stocking; it was about the rate of sale, the profitability, the teamwork, the standards, the skeleton, and what's wrapped around it. But Jennifer's just taken us on a journey in the last 25 minutes. But as a leader, if we can learn the art of telling connected stories and being vulnerable enough to share our successes, our challenges, our failures, our personal life, that's what people buy into. And I think it's just such a, like, there's so many moments in today's 25 minutes for me to pause and see myself in your own story that I just want to take a minute. If we can get more comfortable and embrace the stories we've all walked through on our journey, it's what the people around us are going to connect in. Amy, as we get to a close for today, is there anything you wanted to ask Jennifer as we look to close the episode, and anything up and coming for Lead? I know there is.
Well, Jennifer, thank you for being on the Lead podcast and supporting Lead. She also was nominated, even though she's already the big leader, as an emerging leader because everyone loves her in the industry. So she's on the list, which is adorable, and well deserved. And we've got a couple events coming up. We're moving on the 2 dates in Orange County and San Diego and California. So March 2nd, we'll have Greg Creed speaking. And then in November, that date is TBD, but that'll be coming and being posted shortly. And right now, if you're interested in voting, we've got the top 20 emerging leaders. Voting is open right now. Again, you can vote for Jennifer and all your other people. I sound like I'm on America's Idol with Ryan Seacrest, but get your votes in. It's important. But at the end of the day, those emerging leaders are ones that most of them have never been recognized before. And so it's very cool and it's very rewarding to see a lot of these managers or shift supervisors or directors getting nominated by their peer set. So make sure to take some time, invest in them, and get your votes in. And Matt, always good to see you, my friend. And Jennifer, thanks again for being on.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to be here.
Okay,
Anytime.
thanks.